Hello, everyone. Our first presenter will be Dustin Ferguson, who is a local horror film maker, and he's currently working on his sixth film here in Lincoln. Some of his projects include editing Sleepaway Camp 4 and a new entry for the Boogeyman series. He will discuss some of his filming experiences in and around Lincoln, so please give your best warm welcome to Dustin Ferguson.
Hello everyone, my name is Dustin Ferguson. I'm the creator of Retro Horror Remix Home Video. We are an underground horror label that specializes in releasing horror-oriented fan edits as well as directed films. Our releases are posted for free on a website, and we've existed for nearly 6 years. Our first film was a fan tribute to the 1984 film Scalps, directed by Fred Olen Ray. In the end credits of that film, it promised a sequel titled Scalps 2: The Return of DJ that never actually came into fruition. Jump to 23 years later, and in 2007 I directed my first short titled Scalps 2. The opening of the film features a young woman calling up her friends to go over the weekend's plans. This was filmed in a rental house in the old Havelock district of Lincoln. This sequence lasts for about 2 minutes in the film, although it took us about 3 hours to film. There are many roads and highways that surround the edges of the city that are very scenic. A lot of the footage at the beginning of Scalps 2 consists of our local roads and highways. There's about a 90-second driving segment that shows in sequence the roads between Lincoln and Indian Cave. Most of these scenes in the movie were filmed at Indian Cave, and we also had to double a different location in it, which was actually my dad's place right offside Lincoln on O Street. We had to do this because the night scenes would have been impossible to film without the electricity we needed at the park. After Scalps 2, I directed another short titled Horror House that was basically an homage to the 1985 film Horror House on Highway 5. Horror House was a fun flick and was entertaining enough to fans that they demanded a sequel be made. So 1 year later, Return to Horror House was born. During the opening credits, various Lincoln roads can be seen with like 14th Street and 27th Street just north of town. The killer scene here is played by Ceresco resident Jacob Hostetler, who acted in both Horror House and Return to Horror House, as well as engineering the sound. The van used was supplied by Lincoln's own Rent-A-Wreck. About 50% of the film was shot here in Lincoln. This scene in particular was one shot actually done in the small village of Ceresco. We used the upstairs of my house and turned it into an asylum. Most of these scenes take place at the beginning of the movie, and eventually we end up in Lincoln. This is one of the scenes I actually had an acting part in. I played the brother of the lead girl who has been missing for over 2 days. I embark on a search to find her, which we filmed all outside of Lincoln. I was supposed to be lost on the twisting and winding roads of the countryside. At one point, I actually was. This road is right off 56th Street. You wouldn't know it, but if you stray just a little off the main roads when you leave town, they can become a whole nother world. Long stretches of nothing, various clusters of trees, and the occasional almost creepy old farmhouse, all spread far and few in between. Driving segments are a common theme in my films because I like to use them to symbolize the departure from reality in each movie. In every horror flick, there's always that point when everything kind of starts to take on an eerie undertone. This road in particular was used in 2 of my films. One of the main villains in the film is a sadistic nurse. She's played very tongue-in-cheek by Lincolnite Tara Hinckley. Tara's had a part in every Retro Horror Remix production and is also the Retro Horror Remix pinup girl. This is one of her most classic roles, which she'll be returning to in Horror House 3. The climax of the film was shot in a house off 84th and A Street. In the ending, the final girl has a confrontation with the killer, which doesn't end too well for her. She was played by local actress Jo Carr, who has recently moved to LA to further pursue her acting career. My most recent film was based on the 11 reported sightings of a so-called skunk ape in Nebraska. This film was the most involved with Lincoln and features the most obvious Lincoln locations. This sequence in particular was filmed at Wildwood Park, just outside of town. The movie begins with our host, Professor Hank Crabtree, played by Lincoln resident Marcus Tegmeyer, presenting the facts and introducing the segments. These sequences were shot in the same house as the climax from Return to Horror House. During the midsection of the film, there is a montage of popular downtown locations. Featured in this shot is the Wells Fargo building, located just down the street from here. While this was filmed just last fall, as you can see, the intended color correction gives the film a bit of a retro vintage look. Something that stands Lincoln apart from other Nebraska cities is the amount of artistic integrity we have. All over downtown, you will find paintings, sculptures, bicycles, and giant murals, all in the name of art. They are beautiful to admire and make great set pieces on film. Lincoln has been known to have lots of events and attractions throughout the year that brings many travelers. Downtown is one of the biggest hotspots for culture, and from time to time makes parking quite the adventure. To solve this, inner city Lincoln has several great parking garages, one of which we utilized to capture this scene. Living in the capital city is something to be proud of. The Capitol itself is an enormous building that has a lot of history. It is a beautiful sight and can be seen from any direction when first entering the city. I felt in order to best capture what Lincoln was about, we had to include this historic monument. In closing, I would like to say that Lincoln has provided me with many opportunities in the field of filmmaking. I shot them all here, used local actors, and premiered them at the Vintage Joyo Theater in Lincoln. Lincoln is full of great locations and nice people, making it not only an awesome place to film, but the best place to live. Thank you.